Hi, welcome back to my channel. I'm Emerald the Quilter, and we are working on the Gingerbread Quilt from the Perfect 5 Quilts book by It's So Emma, and I have to show you today my completed quilt top. So it's all quilted. There it is. I mimicked the large swirls that I did on the full-size quilt I had already made for my son. And I wanted to bring that one out too again. Here it is. It's a perfect mini, it matches, and I'm very excited to get this pillowcase done. Today I'm going to show you how to take your miniature quilt and turn it into a pillowcase. So I already have my backing fabric prepared. It's been ironed. And I also have my binding already done. To prepare my quilt top for the pillowcase backing, I'm going to need to trim the excess off. And this is actually my favorite part of quilt making, trimming off the batting and the backing. I find it very satisfying. And it goes easy when you have a fresh rotary blade. So I swapped mine out for a new one moments before I started recording. And I did, after making that first cut, line up the edge closest to me to the mat. Now I have two corners to match up. Checking my two sides, and I'm going to continue. One more side to go. Okay, now that I've cut off all the edges, I'm going to see how the quilting impacted the quilt top. So I'm looking to see, like, okay, down here, it's just a little bit over 18 inches. And then up here it is as well. This corner is just a tad bit more. So I'm going to, and then from the bottom to the top, it is also right at 18 inches. And before I cut, I want to see which border is bigger. So this one is a little bit like 1 5/8. And then over here, it is 1.5. So I'm going to cut off the border on this side. And free motion quilting, really any kind of quilting, will eat away at your quilt. So it will shrink in size. So now my quilt top is 18 inches squared. And I know I wanted it to be 18.5 inches so that it could finish at 18 inches, but I'm going to show you how that's actually going to be okay with two different pillows that I have that are both considered 18 inches. So my quilt top sandwich, it has been cut, the excess, and it's been squared up. Here is the backing that I have, and I like a large overlay of fabric on my pillowcase envelope back. So let me line this up on this side, cut away over here the selvage. I like to keep about, I like to use about 14 inches. And that gives me enough of an envelope back layover to accommodate any sort of 18-inch pillow. So if you've noticed, some pillows are fluffier than others or they're more dense. I have two different ones to show you today. So I am going to measure out 14 inches right here. Am I correct? Yep, 14 inches. This can go back into my cubby. And now I'm going to cut this, and I'm checking the sides, to 18 inches. That goes right here. This is just a little bit short. 13 and a half. That will be just fine. Like I said, it is a large layover. Okay, now I'm ready to take both pieces and I'm going to press about 1/4 inch and then press again. So I'm creating a top of the envelope back, and it's easier to do on the iron. I'm just showing you right here. So I will do this at the ironing board, press it down, and it'll stay in place. And I'll do that to this one and this one. And I am folding along the longest width of the fabric. So just to show you again, I'll press about 1/4 inch all the way across and then do it again. So you can see I took these folded edges to the iron and I pressed them flat and they've pretty much stayed down. I can open them up, see? And I did not measure them, I just eyeballed 1/4 inch. Then I picked out a matching thread because this is going to be exposed. So that is the closest red that I had. I'm going to use this one, and with a straight stitch, I'm going to sew all the way across. So my stitches are on the envelope back, and I know it's kind of hard to see in red because it's red on red, but they are there. It will not open anymore. And I like to take my quilt top and make sure that it's facing, you know, a certain direction so the top of the quilt is towards me. I like to add the bottom on first. That way the envelope at the top is what you see. And I have my mouse here with thicker pins, and I really love these flower head pins. You can buy them at your local grocery store sometimes. I know I do. I buy them at H-E-B and Joann's, Hobby Lobby. Now the thing with these is that this little flower plastic petal here, over time it breaks off and then there's nothing to grab onto. But they are my favorite and I just keep repurchasing them. So I'm going to start by adding pins in the corners. And then across the bottom. And I'm matching the edges. And then alongside the top. And I'm also going to add 3, but this one up here and over here, I'm going to add at the end. So 2, okay. And now this second one goes right on top. Make sure that my edges match. And I'm going to do the same thing by pinning these corners. Pinning this corner. I'm going to add 3 to the bottom, just like I did to the other side here. 2 along the edge. And so here, let me bring this up more towards the center. This one, I'm going to make sure it is all the way over on top. It's a little taut, so loosen it up. Okay, there we go. And then I can feel where right here the other seam is at, right here. And I'm going to just take one and put it on both. So one seam is here, one seam in here, seam is here. I know that is a lot of coverage, but it keeps your pillow from pulling and eventually coming out. So I will show you the one that I have already done and how wonderful it is to have extra coverage. You can have more or less, probably not much more, but I'm going to finish adding my pins. And I'm out of my flower head pins, so I'm adding this one and then this one. Okay. Now I'm ready to take this to the sewing machine and add a basting stitch all the way around. The basting stitch is on, and I left the red thread on the sewing machine so that you could see it a little bit better on this white fabric. I used a size 4 for the stitch length, and that is going to keep this envelope back in place because the rest is as normal. You're going to take your binding and add it to the quilt top. Okay, I've added white thread back onto the machine, and you could match your binding thread to the binding if you wanted. And I'm lining up these edges. I am also leaving this edge here about halfway towards the center of my pillowcase. And I'm coming closer towards this corner. I like to leave more than a 1/4 inch of my binding on the top. That way it's even across both sides. And I'm also using a 1.5 inch stitch length. And because your quilt top is a little bit thicker, you can just move a little slower. The basting stitch on your pillowcase is going to help keep everything together. I'm going to lift this up, fold that over, and then put this through. It's quite thick, so I'm going to help it just a little bit. I just simply lifted it because it was quite heavy. And in here I feel a pin that I had forgotten. And take that out. And when you're working with directional binding, make sure before you start sewing it down that when you flip it over, it's facing the right way. So when I flip this over, I'm having my candy canes, the bottom face outwards on all four sides and the head of the candy cane facing inwards. Folding this back, just like normal. And you do that again, make sure it's nice and straight. Pressing and then folding it. Okay, that's a little bit better. And now I am binding along the top of the quilt, which means I am halfway done. And I'm just binding a little bit slower than usual because it will feed unevenly if you go at your usual speed when binding a quilt. And I also like to use a 1.5 inch stitch length on the binding of pillowcases because the tugs and pulling of putting a pillowcase on and off a pillow form can weaken your stitches over time, and having short stitches keeps it nice and strong. This is the last corner. And I'm just going to stop about maybe a quarter of the way across the pillowcase because I want enough space to make sure that I am able to close my binding comfortably. So right there is good. And now I'll just bring this over here. I'm going to take this end, and whichever method you prefer, I'm going to attach the binding to itself using the traditional method where you take a piece off like this. Extend it a 1/4 inch above your piece that's sticking out. Cut it away. And then attach with a diagonal seam. So what you do is open these up. Fold this diagonally. Press it. Make sure that your edges match. Then match these corners. And I'm going to take it to the sewing machine. I'm just grabbing another leader first. There we go. Lining this back up because I had shuffled around a little bit. And I am going to stitch along my pressed line. Okay, you will see that when I close it, it is now attached to itself, and I can go back in and remove this triangle here. And also cut this leader away. I'm going to press it to one side and finish the binding of my quilt. Cutting it off, and if you get puckers like I just did, it's okay because they're on the inside and they will not show on the outside. Okay, to get your big poofy pillow into your pillowcase, you're going to start by taking the corners and pushing them in towards the top corners of your pillowcase. So I'm just shimmying it through. Okay, so those are in right here. It's up to the edge, and I'm going to turn it around. I've got the envelope pretty much completely pushed over, and then I'm going to bring the other envelope out, push this in, and shimmy it inside. Okay, now that it's in, I'm going to correct these corners here. Taking it one corner at a time will help keep your stitches from popping. Now I can fix the inside envelope, so I am just tugging it. Okay. And then I'm readjusting this, fluffing it back out, and it is all in. So it's poofy, and to change it towards one of these, this is the Polyfill brand pillow form. It's also 18-inch finish, but it's just not as poofy. It will lay flatter, and you repeat the same process. I needed to stop before we ended the video today because I wanted to celebrate that we have finished the entire one charm pack category, and I put checks next to each of my quilt. So here is the Gingerbread Quilt pillowcase, and this is the Gingerbread Quilt top. And it's been so much fun sewing with you. I hope you are enjoying these videos, and get ready because the next time that we see each other, we're gonna dive into our charm packs again for the 2 charm pack category. And I already have my charm pack picked out. I am going to be using the Rose Lane fabric line. This is a Riley Blake Designs fabric by, her name is Beverly McCullough of Flamingo Toes, and I have 2 of these charm packs already. So the very first quilt in the 2 charm pack category is, depending on how you call it, I've heard it called biscotti. I was raised calling it biscotti. That is the next quilt that we are going to be making, and it looks like this. So remember to like and subscribe to my videos, and I can't wait to see you next time. Bye!